Thank you all for joining Arctic IT today for the Dynamics 365 F&O for Casinos webinar. We're excited to have Matt Borkowski, Pre-Sales Solution Architect, presenting for us today. So with that, let us welcome Matt.
All right, well, thank you, Brooke. I'm excited to start for today, and I wanted to just say hello to everyone. So as we get started today, wanted to set the stage for why Arctic IT is the right Microsoft partner to be talking to you about Dynamics 365. We've been working with Microsoft for many years. We are an experienced solution provider that comes with the stability of an organization, with financially stable, with the right team to help execute and make sure that we're here for the long haul, that we're not just implementing a solution, training you how to use it, and ducking out, that we remain a strong teammate for you throughout your entire time using Dynamics 365. Our name is Arctic IT because we were born in Alaska. We still have a large office there in Anchorage, Alaska. However, each of these stars are where we have offices and operations centers around the United States, as well as employees that telecommute and travel throughout the US. We currently have active customers in 31 states, Washington, DC, and Canada. So while we are born in Alaska, we are a full national organization. Now, we are proud to be part of the Doyon Limited Alaska Native Corporation family of companies. So we are a native-owned organization. The Alaskan Native Corporation, Doyon Limited, is headquartered in Fairbanks, Alaska. They are the Central Region, Alaska ANC. We are proud to be part of the company. And here's our leadership team and council that help oversee our operations at a corporate level. And I mentioned our ability to execute on the solutions that we deliver. And that comes from our deep experience as a Microsoft partner, as a gold partner, which is just 1% of those technology partners Microsoft has. We maintain top level certified personnel across all areas of the Microsoft stack. And when we look at Dynamics 365 and we talk about Microsoft Cloud solutions, a lot of that's still relatively new, but we're here, we're experienced in it. We've climbed this mountain. We can demonstrate competencies in every major component of Dynamics 365, Office 365, Azure as a whole, really just the entire suite of Microsoft Cloud solutions. And we've worked outside of the Microsoft Cloud as well. So we have that deep experience. While we do like Microsoft and we drink a lot of the Microsoft Kool-Aid, as we like to say, we're deeply experienced throughout different areas as well, not just in Microsoft. But the meat of today will be focused on Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. Now, when Microsoft was looking at what they were going to do with their future of their ERP solutions, they started talking to folks and to ask, how have you outgrown your current accounting system? And it really, a lot of the pain points and areas fell into these 5 areas, where having a siloed system, meaning that you have multiple applications in different places that aren't really talking to one another. And because of that, you've got duplicate data. That same information has to be manually entered or processed into multiple areas, or maybe you have a clunky integration that you're trying to move that information back and forth, leaving you with very insufficient reporting. And behind that, you have the security issues of trying to maintain and manage the authentication and roles across all those multitude of applications, leaving you more vulnerable and more of a headache to maintain and properly secure all those applications. So when Microsoft was looking at this, they said, we can't do more, we have to do more, than just creating a new financial application. We have to look at the platform as a whole, technology platform as a whole, for how we can address these different areas. And so that's what Dynamics 365 is. It's more than just a finance application. It is an integrated cloud platform that, as Microsoft says, it unifies kind of a typical CRM, operational system and ERP capabilities to really break down those data silos, to give you a very modern and intelligent applications on the cloud that can move your business forward. And you hear that term digital transformation quite a bit, and that really is coming down to the fact of taking those processes, taking the headaches of things that have been done manually for years and automating that in a secure platform to really help achieve that digital transformation. But at its core, Dynamics 365 is a set of multiple applications on the same platform. So you've got your sales and service, customer retention, including member management and marketing, things like that from a player interaction standpoint, host systems, finance and operations, what we'll really be talking about today on the ERP side of things, talent for human capital management and payroll marketing, and even enterprise retail. While they're different applications, they're all on the same platform, all in a common data model, which means if you have a customer in one system, that customer can be available throughout the other systems at a real core level. You're not having to create that customer in multiple places. Again, breaking down those data silos. And it is more than just the Dynamics 365 platform. It is part of all those Azure cloud services. So that Office 365, Power BI for great reporting, all of that really comes together with the power of the Azure cloud to, again, break down those data silos, reduce the manual processes in a much more secure method across the gamut of those applications. Now, when we dial in and take a deeper look at the Dynamics 365 ERP, there are two versions of Dynamics 365 financial systems. The one that we're focused on today, that is finance and operations. That is their enterprise level ERP. Now, while it's only been out for about a couple of years now, it's filled with functionality for something that we would think as being a new system. And the reason that is it's based on the success of some previous Dynamics versions. At its core, Dynamics AX or Exapta, you might have heard about in the past, kind of serve as the base core of functionality that Microsoft has redesigned, uplifted, migrated, and enhanced and added to as part of the conversion to D365 as a cloud application. And it is a fully featured multi-entity type application that offers consolidations and budget planning and more across an enterprise. So it works very well for large casinos and even tribes that are looking to manage their entire enterprise. So the tribal government, their gaming operations, their non-gaming operations, all of that can be managed and secured in one ERP solution of finance and operations. On the small business side, we've got Business Central as well, and that's based upon Dynamics NAV as kind of that core set of functionality. And it's optimized for a lot of really quick transaction processing and things that are necessary as part of an SMB. And so it really is ideal for maybe small tribal casinos or smaller economic development corporations that are on their own systems, maybe that are not part of a larger enterprise. But it is not a good fit for a larger casino enterprise, and that's why we're focusing on finance and operations today. It is on the Azure platform, and Microsoft has really taken a security first view of that. Continuous operations, meaning always available with full data duplication, data recovery, sort of geo multi-location to make sure that your system is always secure, always stable, and readily recoverable if something ever were to happen, which we have not seen. It's all managed through lifecycle services. In the past now, is that idea of your large version upgrades and how you maintain and manage that and everything. The whole system is engineered and designed around the fact that it is a one version application. You're always on the latest and greatest. You don't have to worry about whether or not customizations or other things upgrade or that your data and reports will work from version to version. The way the platform is designed, but you're always up to date, always on the latest and greatest, and with little to absolutely no downtime as part of those updates. Your full financial management and everything that you would expect from a robust accounting system, but it also includes your full budget planning for financial planning and analysis with great reports and dashboards and things available as part of that Power BI platform that we'll see. Your full procurement, sales, inventory, and warehouse management to be able to manage all of the purchase and inventory storage from food and beverage type items out to just supplies or other things that you need to keep your casino operational. It has available human resources, payroll, and human capital management or talent that's there. And it's all on that very integrated platform across the piece, and even more so than integrated. Microsoft likes to use the word interpolarity, which meaning that the system functions throughout that set of applications to make sure that it's one record that's usable in multiple systems that can be secured as you need to really, again, break down those data silos, give you better reporting, and really eliminate a lot of those manual processes. And so what we'll see a little bit as we dive into this is beyond the financial pieces and even inventory and warehouse and things we've talked about. Also has options for full customer and player management and development as part of Dynamics 365. The inventory and warehouse and reporting and analytics that we've already talked about a little bit, but also full project management that we'll be able to get a quick view at today in just a minute here when we dive into the application itself. But as a modern cloud-based solution, we know that you need more than just the ability to review reports, approve transactions, and use the system while sitting at your desktop. Your key stakeholders of the application, folks that need to run reports, see their dashboards, approve your purchase requests, things like that, need to be able to do that while they're on the go, whether they're around the casino property or even traveling, with full mobile apps available as part of Dynamics 365, as well as just, it's really designed to work well on a touchscreen interface as well. So if you have, Microsoft services or other laptops with touchscreen or even iOS on an iPad, the ability to continue to use the system on mobile-friendly devices as you're moving throughout your property is highly enabled and empowered by Dynamics 365. And being on a cloud application, you can start to actually take use of some of the great machine learning or AI, if you want, the true built-in business intelligence that is enabled with large data sets and the power of Microsoft Azure, meaning that you could get recommendations for maybe inventory levels, maybe you can update suggestions on what to order and when based upon the demand of recent usage, if maybe that should change your current par levels for reordering. Getting recommendations for when to pay vendors and all that to make sure you're taking best use of discounts. And all that continues to evolve and enabled more and more through those continuous updates from Microsoft to make sure that you get the best use and most value out of your solution on the Microsoft stack. And with full Office 365 embedded in it, that ability to view, approve, and run reports and access things right in Office without having to log into your system or without having to specifically access the accounting system. Just the way that Microsoft Azure authentication works. It knows when you're in Office whether or not you're authenticated user to Dynamics 365. So you can get a lot of that information right from there without having to juggle multiple systems. And behind it again is just that power of the overall Microsoft stack, where the full interfaced and integrated solution for Power BI, which is one of the most powerful and well reviewed and used dashboarding and analytics tools in the world right now, is fully embedded in part of Dynamics 365. Being able to extend what you do with the system to really increase how workflows can operate and the types of interactions you have through Microsoft Flow and Power Apps. And if you've been a Microsoft, a GP or other solution user in the past, where you have some ISVs that you really like, a lot of those same third-party solutions that have worked with other versions of Dynamics work with Dynamics 365. So you can continue to use some of the things that you've come to know and really appreciate and like without having to replace every aspect of that. So as we've talked about the solution through the PowerPoint, it's time that we actually just dive into our demonstration for today. So with that, I'm going to switch over and bring up the Dynamics 365 for casino operations. So with that, when you first access Dynamics 365, we see that I'm just accessing my finance and operations homepage. Now, as it is based on a fully browser-based solution, there's nothing to install on a computer, just being authenticated through Microsoft Azure Active Directory with the role that I've been given in the system. You don't have to install anything or maintain that on everyone's desktop or on a terminal server, that sort of thing. And it is browser agnostic. So right now, I am logged in using Google Chrome, my favorite, but it should work on just about any of your most commonly used browsers out there. And it does include the ability with any browser application to be able to zoom in, zoom out, that sort of thing. So it can look and feel more the way that you would want to be able to change that from a user basis. In the upper left-hand corner here, we have what we call the waffle. And this is a way where you can see as part of that solution that I could switch over into my Office applications or maybe open that as a separate web browser or even load it on my machine if we have the full Office installed. Other apps and things that are available, you're getting into the customer service side of things, Business Central, as we talked about earlier, if we had a version of that Microsoft Talent, you can switch seamlessly and have open those different applications that are all on that same platform at the same time. So you're not having to log in, log back out, you switch around and do all that. They can be multiple tabs open and operating at the same time in your browser. Over on the left here, we have the navigation pane for accessing what is in finance and operations. We'll get back to that in a minute, because how F&O, as we call finance and operations F&O, how that is commonly accessed, or one of the most commonly ways that you use that is through the use of these workspaces. These workspaces, I see all of them right now because I am an administrator in the system. These are personally curated, if you will, role-based access for using various applications throughout functionality throughout the system. So right now I'm accessing the bank management workspace. So if I was a user that handles our bank reconciliations, I could go through, you come over here, go to cash and banking and pull up the different reports and things that I need. But this kind of organizes the most commonly used reports, functions and things for banking in one spot. It also has some of the larger buttons that you see on it to enable quick usage for things like using a touch screen if we're on the go. But from here, I could import a bank statement to auto-reconcile a lot of my bank accounts and move forward from there based upon the transactions that have actually hit and cleared at the bank. Or, it starts enabling some of those dashboards, graphs, and reports we were talking about a little bit earlier. So if I were to pick, my operating account and go back a little bit longer where I have more demo data, we see that I now have, just a nice little quick graph showing me the changes in bank balances from month to month throughout the application. But this is more than just a static graph. It is truly interactive. So if I want to see, why do we have this big spike as of this point? By clicking on that, I can drill down to a list of those actual bank transactions. And I can see, well, we had a $400,000 deposit that day. Well, what made up that deposit, right? Well, I can take a look at the deposit slip itself to get some more information. It was just one main deposit, one deposit slip, and I can continue to go down and see, this was an accounts receivable base, so I could see the invoices that were paid as part of that. See the individual voucher, any attachments that might have been made from that. And that sort of drilled down functionality, that true audit trail is available throughout the application. We're starting just on a dashboard. I can get down to the individual transactions and the documents behind that without having to switch around to lots of different screens. And all of these workspaces are personalizable. So I could come up here, personalize this. I could add a new report to this, add new fields, add other elements to this that will make this most usable for me or for folks in this role that I could then publish and share those personalizations for authorized users to make these most usable, not just what Microsoft says, but also what's going to be best for your organization. And embedded in this is all, as we'll see in just about every workspace throughout the system, is these analytics, which are the true Power BI dashboards, which there are a number of just canned out of the box available dashboards in the application. But they serve as a great starting point as well for you to be able to create your user-specific dashboards that are tailored to exactly what your organization needs. That could be run separately in Power BI. They could be published through an intranet, or they can be accessed from inside of finance and operations itself. Another example of that might be the CFO overview, which brings in a number of the dashboards from throughout the application into one quick dashboard access, where I could see how we're doing various metrics at a high level, drill down into some of the specific budget finance related items here, the sales, purchasing, banking. Again, these are all very just canned ones that are available out of the box with very little demo data behind them. But just showing the breadth of these dashboards that are available out of the box and give you the ability to personalize, customize, create your own that fits your organization and have those published right through Dynamics 365. Back on the home screen, we also see that you've got full search capabilities. So if I wanted to access a trial balance, for instance, I could type in trial balance, and it's going to suggest that I probably mean general ledger trial balance, but also suggest other things that it thinks you might mean. Maybe you're looking at an aged customer balances report, or or beginning balances for some of your project management. Really anything that it thinks you might have meant by trial balance, it's going to bring up to make it very easy for you to find what you're looking for, especially as new users are just getting used to the application. And we have fully embedded help menus and things as you would expect from Microsoft. We'll show you in a little bit some additional help functionality that's available. So now that we've looked at a high level at some of the navigation and general usage of the system, let's get into some of the nitty-gritty of the financial aspects of the system. A great place to start with that, of course, is taking a look at the general ledger. So when I first click on this, you see there's a whole plethora of options and things that are available. Again, as a administrator, I'm going to see all options. Each individual user would only see the options and functions that are available in their role. So it'll be more cleaned up and efficient just for the individual users. But at its core, when you're establishing what you need in a financial application, we really have to start with, well, what does that chart of accounts look like? How is my general ledger structured? So with finance and operations, that starts with those main accounts. What signifies what's a liability account, expense, revenue, yada, yada, all those things as you would expect. But because it is designed to be used across multiple entities, you could have a central maintenance of these where you have a gaming, casino operations sort of chart of accounts and a government operations, and those for maybe your non-gaming enterprises. So as new properties are spun up, or as new non-gaming enterprises are purchased and acquired, maybe new departments in government operations, you can quickly have an established chart of accounts ready to go for them and share that across the board with consolidating type functions. So you could have tribal administrators and finance leaders and council members be able to roll up your reports across the entire enterprise while still having division managers and individual company or property executives looking at reports and functions just for their operations or what's most helpful for them. So once that main account, that main chart of accounts is established for the entity, we then look at, well, what else do you want to capture as part of your financial transactions? Some systems call those segments. Commonly uses would be other departments, maybe programs, funds out in the tribal government space. But inside of finance and operations, we call those financial dimensions. And taking a look at the financial dimensions, might have things like a property. For instance, what are my different properties that I have throughout the city? So if I have multiple casinos, multiple properties that are under one EIN, or maybe they're separate, but you want to be able to use that true multi-entity processing inside the application, establishing a property so that on each individual transaction, at the balance sheet, which properties does this belong to, that sort of thing. We can look at things like departments and divisions, projects, all those sorts of things. But with this flexible sort of dimension chart of accounts, it even gives you the ability to start capturing things or designing that chart of accounts maybe a different way. A great example might be your games, the types of revenue that are tracked and captured in a casino operation. Most of the time when I'm working or we're implementing a solution, when we're looking at someone's chart of accounts, they've got 40 different types of games, and plus all the denominations and stuff, nickel slots, dime slots, that sort of thing. Then their chart of accounts has a separate line, a separate account for each of those, which can be cumbersome, especially as you're sifting through different things. Maybe things get coded incorrectly more often than not, that sort of way. So one way of simplifying some of that is that inside of the system, I can establish a dimension that is just called game. And then I can enable that dimension to say that, look, only when a gaming revenue account is picked, then or is utilized, then we also have to say what game did that come from. And I'll show you what that looks like in a little bit. That can simplify your chart of account structures for all the other areas of the system where you're not worried about capturing what game or that revenue source, like at the balance sheet or on the expense side, just to simplify that entry, but also give you the flexibility of reporting and capturing the financial analysis that you need. So for instance, here in my game dimension, I have the list of all the games in my fictitious casino that I'm running here in my demo environment. But this is also a nice way of seeing how that Microsoft Office interpolarity, if you'll excuse me using one of Microsoft's favorite words earlier, how that works. In just about any accounting system, modern accounting system right now, you expect to be able to export lists of things to Excel, right? So if I have my list of financial dimensions here, I just say, look, I want to export this to Excel, I can absolutely do this. But going beyond that in finance and operations, which you won't see in pretty much any other system, is this ability to open in Excel. Let me do that to show you really what that means. When I open in Excel, it is not just a static list of information in an Excel file that can be saved off somewhere that you might use for reporting or that sort of thing. It is a truly functional and interactive use of your Dynamics 365 data in Microsoft Excel. As this opens up, you'll be able to see what I mean here. So it opened up a blank spreadsheet for me when I clicked open in Excel. When I say enable editing, it is going to launch the Dynamics 365 Excel add-in here, which is automatically, you don't have to install it. It is part of the web application here, and it is validating that my Active Directory account, that I am an authenticated, authorized user of not only Dynamics 365, but also this data set in the system. If I found this spreadsheet out someplace that had accidentally been saved in a shared folder, and I'm not authorized to see this information, unless I've been specifically shared that with, I'm not going to be authorized. So it really adds an extra layer of protection and security to your data, and it has an encrypted transfer method between Excel and Dynamics 365. So now I have that full list of my games, but beyond just having an updated list, I could refresh this at any point, which is going to bring in the most relevant information. So if anything had changed, like any sort of report, it would update it. But I also have the ability to interact with it. So for instance, up here, we see I had this nickel slot. So maybe I said, no, that I wanted to change this to dime slots for 7211. And I also want to add a new game, call this 7212, call this quarter slots. And is it suspended? No. Do I want to calculate it from other dimensions? No. But one thing you can see is over on the right, it is doing validation of the data as I'm entering it. For instance, when I'm on my financial dimension name, it is showing me the active dimensions inside the system that I can create. So while it's Excel, it's enforcing that I'm putting in valid information. It's not just a free form template to use where you're going to cause some data corruption or anything like that. So I can see the valid options, create those things. And over here, if I'm authorized to do so, I can click publish. And that publish is updating that information, if I'm authorized to do so, back in the system. So if I come back to my list here, see down here, I had nickel slots and I didn't have the 7212, but as soon as I refresh this list, come down, we'll see that updated where it says dime slots and the quarter slots. So that, while that might not be all that useful for maintaining your dimensions, this is available if you chose to use it throughout the system. So maybe updating large descriptions for your inventory items. You're getting some new information, you want to update it all in Excel, publish it back. That's a very common and great use of this for quickly making changes. And all those changes are still tracked in the audit history of the system. So this doesn't bypass who made the change, when it was made, what it was made from and to. Full audit trail behind it to still secure and track what was changed, but allowing this to be done in a more expedient method where it makes sense, as well as being able to import transactions and all that.
Hi, Matt. We have a question about the list.
Mm-hmm.
Is this similar to the analytical accounting feature in GP? That's been a bit of a nightmare.
That is a good question. When you think about the dimensions of as this is set up, it is in some ways similar to what analytical accounting tried to be, but it never really worked from a technical perspective. This is really analytical accounting and a combination of analytical accounting and a segmented chart of accounts like you have in GP, but doing it well and doing it right. So that idea of in analytical accounting. Maybe you had a project was the most common thing we saw there. Or maybe you created a project and you said, whenever the WIP account was used, we need to pick the project to go with it. You can absolutely do that same thing here with a dimension in finance and operations. But it is all part of the normal general ledger account structure. So it's not creating a separate ledger as analytical accounting did. It's not having to duplicate all that information as analytical accounting did. And so it works much more seamlessly, works really well, and automatically becomes part and available for your financial reporting. Once we create those financial dimensions and we have what's there, then we can start looking at what we call an account structure. And that defines how you use those dimensions. So great examples on the balance sheet side, right? For a balance sheet, I don't need to capture a department. Typically balance sheet items aren't going to a department. So in my example here, when I'm working with the balance sheet, all that's required is the property that that belongs to, and then the account. So I don't have to enter in a fictitious department or game or anything else that maybe you have as part of your chart of accounts. It's just property and game, and it knows that because I'm telling it to only require property for this range of those main accounts. But when I'm dealing with my expense accounts, I'm going to want more than that. Where I not only have that same main account and property, but now I also want to capture the division. I want to know which division or department those expenses belong to. And in this case, I also have an object class built in, and we'll talk about that more when we get to the budgeting side. But just to allow some quick roll-ups, the system will automatically assign an object class of 60 whenever the main account is between these two things. So you can automatically default values of things and just simplify data entry. So I'm not having to pick a division when I am working with a balance sheet, as an example. Then I get to the revenue side here, and I have that property and department again, but now I've also added the game in my setup here. So that only becomes necessary and available to use when I've picked a revenue account. Having those dimensions also allows you to set up what's called a financial dimension set, which is kind of some automated ways of running reports. So typically from a Dynamics GP or a specific chart of accounts, where maybe you have a very structured, segmented chart of accounts, if you wanted to be able to just roll balances up, to say, look, I just want to see overall, how am I doing for all of my expenses at the property level, and then maybe the property and department level, or maybe the department level, but spanning all my properties. Like, how do I want to roll this up and do that? And here you can do that very quickly by just creating a dimension set. It says in this case, look, if I use this dimension set, I want to do it by the account, the group, and the division. Maybe I want another one that's just by game and division, all rolled up, or that property, division, and object class. You can create as many different groups, if you will, dimension sets, to slice and dice these things. So when you run a report, you can tell it, well, how do you want to roll that information up? You can create a new one in a matter of minutes, and then use it on your reports. You're not having to build out complex account structures, complex trees and different things. It's all available very, very quickly, so you can get the reports in the way that you want them. And then that spills over into the actual general ledger processing, for instance. If I come to my general ledger processing workspace, I'm going to see what are the batches that I'm working on that maybe aren't posted, what's been assigned for me to review and approve before I post in the workflows, what are my recurring entries that I'm maintaining, that sort of thing. It can really help break out and segregate the work that you're doing, so you know what to take action on. Here's just an example of a simple journal entry that's been in here, where I have my accounts and descriptions and these things. But a couple of key things to notice. Inside of one journal, you can kind of think of this as a batch in the system. You can have multiple transactions very quickly with just different lines. So you see in one batch here, I have transactions dated from July and in March. So if you've recorded a new prepaid, you just want to quickly break all that out while you're here, you can do that. Each individual line, obviously, you can see that creates a new transaction voucher number for each that has to be individually balanced. But you can work and create cross months, cross dates for everything that you're authorized to do in one transaction entry set. You can also do more than just updating or adjusting at the general ledger. So what commonly happens, let's say someone needs to make some sort of account, a vendor adjustment, right? You'd go into the AP, create a transaction there and have that post through the general ledger. Well, from the same place here, for instance, I could pick a vendor, select the vendor from there, and create that debit memo or credit memo, whatever I need right from here. So it's automatically going to record that to the general ledger as part of that same thing, but also update your sub ledger, your vendor ledger, making it very difficult to get a sub ledger and a general ledger out of sync, because you can really control how that's done and interact with it in a much more user-friendly way. But if I put this back to just a main general ledger account here, I just am going to pick a notes receivable account here. You can see, because I picked notes receivable, only property is required. I don't have to pick department, game, anything like that. So maybe I say this is part of my corporate operations. So that's all I have to do for that line. But let me delete this line here and re-enter so you can see what can happen as of this point. If I enter my game revenue account, when I pick that, see, now it knows that I have to pick a division and a game as well. So maybe I say this was in our Tucson property. This was part of our accounting thing there, and this was a bingo game, right? So because I picked a different type of account, it's requiring different dimensions. Same thing on the salaries adjustment we see here. Because I picked an expense account, it's requiring the division, but the game isn't there. That's so you can configure the dimensions and those accounting sets to make the system be most efficient for you with the type of information, types of transactions that you're working on. Another thing, while you're here in the general ledger side, you can see down below budget checking not performed. Your budget controls can function throughout the system, not just on the PO side, but all the way through for AP, GL, to make sure that no transaction that you post puts you out of your budget control parameters in the system. And as a handy little thing, I can print a balances report here, because any of us that have been accountants in the past have been at that spot where we were making a month-end entry and we got our debits and credits switched around. We made our adjustment the wrong way, that sort of thing. Here we can run a report that'll show me the before balance, the transactions that I'm entering and what the closing balance would be, so I can validate before I've posted the transaction or submitted for approval that the adjustment that I made is giving me the end result that I was looking for. So it's a really nice time-saving feature in the application. Also, at any point with the transaction you're working in, I can save this as a periodic journal to maybe use again in the future. I don't have to create a special template, that sort of thing. If I know that this is one I'm going to want to have to do every month, that sort of thing, I can save it and use it right from there. And then you can also have workflows set up to submit these for approval if they meet certain certain parameters, all that sort of thing. So very robust general ledger. This is also a spot where I like to demonstrate another help menu inside the system, or help functionality that we call a task recorder. Let's say I'm fairly new to the organization. I'm a GL accountant, so I know I'm going to need to run a trial balance all the time. So as part of the training, as part of what we do, we help you establish these recording guides that guide you through how to use the application. So in this case, I have a task guide saved because Microsoft knows that most people now, if they want to know how to do something in their system, they go to YouTube and try to find a video where someone's showing them how to do it first before they go someplace else. Before they read a manual, typically they want a video or someone to guide them through this. So this kind of takes that to the next step and guides you through forming these functions inside the system. So when I say play on that, it's telling me to go to General Ledger, Inquiries and Reports, and Trial Balance. When I get there, it automatically recognizes that I'm at the right window and guides me through that next step. It's saying, pick your from date, your to date. I'll leave this just for last quarter as well. It's walking me through this, your financial dimension set. I say, look, maybe I want to do this by division, property, and main account, right? So I've got all that set up and then calculated balance. So it walked me through that process. And when I'm done, I don't have to look at my notes that I took while watching the video and then go and try to do it. I actually performed running a trial balance as it was walking me through. So now I could see those balances rolled up based upon the parameters that I gave it, and I could start drilling down from here, just as we could in that dashboard earlier, to see the actual transactions, see where these originated, what happened. I could see that this started as a general ledger entry, and see any attachments that are associated with that, all again by just running that trial balance. And those task guides are part of what we help implement. There's libraries of them available when you purchase Dynamics 365, and it's very easy to create your own and maintain those lists to have as ongoing usage and features of Dynamics 365. But as an operations system, you want more than just general ledger. What other types of functionality do you have in the system? So just at a high level, as we step through, with the time remaining, we look at procurement and purchasing. With that, it's got a full inventory, full inventory warehouse management, all those things, along with purchase requests, purchase orders, receiving, shipping, all that kind of stuff. So if I take a quick look as an example of a purchase requisition that we have out here, you can have a requisition that combines both maybe goods to be stored in your inventory, if you were, but also just services or other sorts of things throughout here. So here I have a simple requisition by the finance department. We're buying webcams. You're going to be doing a lot more online web conferences, maybe across your different properties, but also implementation services. You may or may not know, for instance, I know that we're buying those webcams from Ladybug Supplies. We don't know who the proper vendor to help us with that at this point. So the requester doesn't need to know that if you don't want to require that. So later on, maybe a buyer or someone in the procurement side can establish who the best vendor is, change that, and then create multiple POs off of a single requisition that's been approved to maximize your buying potential and reduce costs across the organization. These requisitions can be, if we know it's going to create a new fixed asset, it can be tied right to your fixed asset subledger right from here. You can tie all this to very detailed project management, your specific activities, budget line items, all that from here with full budget controls and full workflow capabilities. Of course, once those purchases are approved and the POs go out, the ability to receive an invoice off of those purchase orders as well, of course. So if I take a look even at a vendor invoice entry, and I want to look at invoices that are pending, because maybe they're in a queue or something like that, I can open up this invoice as an example. Again, that Ladybug headquarters supplies. So that request had gone through. I'd been approved to be able to see those. And when I open this up, I can see not only the transaction from a financial perspective. What is that invoice, the dates, everything behind it? Which purchase order did it come from? How has it passed our budget as of this point? In this case, it matched to multiple receipts. I can see all that right here. And then on the right at the same place, I can choose to see the attachment if we had one as part of this, or hide the view or see those at the same time if I want, and flip through multiples if there were. So in this case, as part of that PO and request, I had also attached the documentation of which webcams we're looking at and why, and that can be viewable even though it was attached at the requisition. I can still see that at the invoice level as well to really help look at everything that's behind this invoice. These invoices can all be routed for approval, just like at the PO level if you need to, if you desire to, but this is also a place where you could have check requests or other non-PO related invoices still be recorded, entered in, and passed around for approval if needed. And taking that a step further, how do those even get in there? There's a vendor collaboration portal available that allows vendors, you can establish a login for a vendor that doesn't count towards your licensing. But if you have an established contact, you can invite them to create a portal account. And then in this, they could come out here and vendors could submit their invoices to you right through their vendor portal. They could look at the status of the invoices that they've submitted, see what has been paid, what hasn't. If you wanted to get that, maybe reduce the number of calls that you're getting from some of your key vendors, as well as allowing them to pick up their POs or respond to bids, RFQs, all that right through that vendor collaboration portal. Some other key operation aspects here: full budget planning, the ability to create budget milestones and to have the system serve as your full budget planning, forecasting tool. You'll consolidate a reporting so you're not passing around spreadsheets and everything like that. You can have design templates that get assigned to division, different departments for them to fill those out. You can add targets, set up those templates how you need. Those budget amounts could come from, you can incorporate fixed assets, projects, last year's, other year's budgets, positions if you're using the HR side. What is my salary budget's going to be? Very robust budget planning functionality in the system. And with just a few minutes left here, I want to touch on a couple of other high-level items, things like full fixed assets functionality. As you would expect, the ability to track assets, where they are purchased from, what was the cost of those, for instance, where they're stored. So if I take a look at maybe we bought a switch, for instance, I see here it's still in receiving, so it hasn't been put in service yet, so no depreciation has happened. But I could see a picture of that. When was it last inventoried? What was the net book value? Where did the acquisition come from? Full usage, and you can have multiple books as well. So if you have different sort of tax calculations and reporting that you need to do, it's all supported through the robust fixed assets. Project management was another area where it combines both that reporting, management, budgeting, as well as deep analytics for those projects. And it is fully integrated with Microsoft Project. So if you have project teams that are building out deep work breakdown structures for maybe large construction projects that are happening at your property, you want to be able to break down the cost and all those things of those. But take a look at like this payment resurfacing project, for instance. I can see that come up to plan, that ability to open that in Microsoft Project to establish that work breakdown structure. So I could bring that in, capture all my tasks, who's responsible behind that, and then start capturing those costs or revenues associated with that. You're taking a look at my project budgets, where I can break that down by activity, by type, by category, amounts, that all that can roll up into my financial budgets as well, but can enforce at the individual project activity throughout the system. And then just to mention that it's there, full expense management, travel requisitions, receipt capture, importing of purchase card, P-card, credit card transactions that people need to provide receipts and justification for. A lot of very deep functionality throughout the system that we could spend days showing. But given that we only have about 10 minutes left, I want to switch back, make sure we have some time for some Q&A here at the end, and just run through a few more things with you all as well. I hope that you enjoyed the ability to see those user-tailored workspaces, how it works with Microsoft Office. Got that full business intelligence and reporting available through it with deep financial management from projects, accounts payable, bank reconciliation. At the casino level, a lot of that accounts receivable we see, again, the hotel system or that sort of thing, but it does have a full and very deep AR collections functionality available throughout it. The budget planning and formulation is a key core of the application. You're able to see just a glimpse of, just to know that that can go into workforce planning, span multiple year forecasts and roll-ups for capital purchases, revenue, personnel budgets, all that stuff in there, and deep purchase, procurement, sourcing, budget control, all that available throughout the system. And the human capital management aspect of, well, one of the additional Dynamics 365 applications that fully integrates and is interfaced with finance and operations on the payroll side is Talent as the full HR application behind the system. As a whole, our goal with these applications is to really help simplify and secure your financial process, whether that's at the financial management level or even into vendor licensing, business intelligence, and a full inventory, supply chain, and project and contract management that we see so often of being such a headache for folks managing multiple systems in the casino space. And using those dimensional reporting to enable better game type reporting and transactions, integrations with those external restaurant, hotel, and gaming systems to bring all that together to give you an end-to-end view of your business in one platform. So at this time, as we think through the types of functionality that we've talked about, a key question for us, and also thinking about what we might include in future webinars, is to know what is your highest priority when you take a look at potential new accounting or finance and operations system. So we're going to be spending just a minute here publishing a poll, which should be popping up on your system here shortly, asking you what is your highest priority from a functionality perspective when you're taking a look at what a new ERP might entail.
Here are the results.
Okay, thank you.
It looks like 50% financials, 38%
Okay.
procurement and inventory, and 13% budgeting and spend management.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. That is helpful to know. And I'm glad that one of the areas that we spent some of the most time in the demo is seeing kind of some of that core financial setup and how that works. As we mentioned at the beginning, there is a handout in the webinar here, and that is where an independent study was done that came across some very positive information on the return on investment for Dynamics 365 expenditures here over the last few years. So really take a minute if you have time later to review that so you can see how Dynamics 365 can really make a financial impact as well to your organization. And after today, I appreciate you joining us today. We have a couple of more casino-related webinars in our series coming up here over the next couple of weeks. Next week, on the casino floor with mobile player management, we talked a little bit about how Dynamics 365 can enable increased engagement with your players that are on your property. And then I know a number of folks are coming or currently coming off of or using Dynamics GP. So just knowing really what is that roadmap? Because there's lots of misinformation that's out there, to be able to talk through Dynamics GP more in focused here on August 15th. So I really want to thank you for your time today. We've got a few minutes left here. So for those that still have some time, if there are additional questions, I would like to take a few minutes to answer those now.
Okay, hi Matt. I have a question here. My leadership team is still leery of moving our ERP system to the cloud. What do I tell them about the security you have to offer with this solution?
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you. So with Dynamics 365, as I mentioned at the beginning, it is on the Microsoft Azure platform. Now, that might not mean anything to you, but what that does mean is that Microsoft Azure is the most successful cloud in the world right now. And one of the key reasons for that, it is the most secure. Multiple studies and things have been done showing that when it comes to, is your data more secure in your own environment on your own servers, or is it more secure in Microsoft Azure? Time and time again, Azure comes out on top because of all the resources behind Microsoft and their desire to secure that. From full encryption as information is being transferred from their system to yours, like via Excel, that sort of thing, to how it's stored at rest, how it's protected, the authentication methods available behind it. It is cloud that has met the most of the federal requirements. It is being used by the federal government across the board, including all the way to the DoD, because of the full trust and security behind it. When it comes to securing your information, there really is no better place to put it than Microsoft Azure, and that also enables significant flexibility in how you can use that outside of your organization, if you want to allow it to, meaning outside of the walls of your organization, have mobile access to that via encrypted multi-factor authentication usage of it, to ensure that only the right people have it, but to give them the access that they need wherever they are. That's a great question, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And now, can this integrate with Agilicis, Infogenesis, POS?
Infogenesis?
Yes.
Yes. We have a number of casinos that we work with, and that's a big piece of what we often do. There are multiple integration methods that we choose. As an online application like as Dynamics 365, it has a very strong what we call API infrastructure. All that really means is the ability to use business processes as part of the integration to make sure that the data that's coming in is correct, meets business rules, and all that stuff. So we using the data integration template that's behind the system, the configuration center, allows us to configure integrations with multiple types of applications. In Infogenesis, Agilicis, Opera, Microi, all the most commonly used casino systems we've definitely worked with in the past, and can have a lot of great dialogue in what information you would or would not want to integrate, and we've definitely done it before.
Okay, thank you. I might want to open this one up. It says just inventory purposes and par levels.
All that means is yes, we didn't get to go in depth into all that can be set up for the procurement and inventory side. You can definitely set up par levels when to make purchases. You can have, if you have multiple properties, you can have different par levels set up for each property, so that you can create planned orders, planned purchases. You can even have, you can track a purchase agreements or contracts that maybe you've made with suppliers for how much you want and when, and track those orders and tick those off of those agreements to be able to track all that. But those par levels can not only be set from a procurement standpoint, but also from an inventory transfer perspective.
Most of these questions have been answered. What we can do is make sure that we follow up with the questions after the demo today. And we just want to thank everybody for coming. We don't want to take up too much of your time today, and it's at the top of the hour. So thank you all for coming, and please feel free to contact Matt or follow up with us after the demo with more questions.
I thank you all very much. I appreciate your time and glad to talk about this with you.